Shardvixen, and today is What Does the Vixen Say? Someday I'll actually have a song for that, probably. I don't know. I've been off and on not doing well with the fibromyalgia. Part of it's my fault because I'm incorporating an exercise routine in, and I have the type of fibromyalgia where activity causes an attack. So I've had to deal with that off and on last week or so. I slept a lot last week. This week, not too bad. This week was a little easier. I slept all day Monday. My legs really hurt. They've been hurting for 2 days now. Anyway, so this question comes from my Discord. It was asked of me of a young man who did not wish to be named because of other things going on. Anyway, so it's a philosophy question, and it has to do with existentialism and I can never say the word right. Nihilism, existentialistic nihilism, which means not. It'll be in the title. I'll put a little slot maybe in between this statement so you'll know what I'm talking about. Remember, I've told you I have a processing disorder. So words, I know what they look like, I know what they mean, and I know how they should be. So if somebody else says it, I can hear it. But unless I have a verbal voice in my head saying the word over and over, and they're not words I use a lot, I can't, say them ever. It took me forever to say existentialism, and I have to look about it all the time. I'm flipping my hair around because I do. Because I was trying to figure out a way where it looked pretty. Yeah, that looks great. That's a good look there. I like that look. So on my two-hunted vlog, I decided just a step from what we were talking about, because I already went off the binge with my hair. I'm going to do a dance video. Hopefully this exercise routine I got going on is going to allow me to do that. I'm going to wear my outfit that I wear to cons. I want to wear to cons if I ever go to a video con or something. Which has my tutu. I'll be so pretty. I'll do a dance. And we'll remember what it was like when we were young. No. Alright, so the philosophy, I had to write this down. So I'll be looking at my notes. There are some really great YouTube channels out there that will explain what these are. I'm just going to give you a pop cap kind of quick thing. So, existentialism is the idea that I, or one individual's life has meaning. Okay? But while they seeking the meaning of life, they also understand that it is based on the individual. So it is not about there being a God. Though if you're you're a philosopher who is, or anyone who believes in it's gonna get me. Existentialism, you can also believe in a God. There are people who don't believe in gods and believe in it, but it's the idea that there is meaning in your life. But even though there is meaning in your life, that you as an individual have meaning, there is also no meaning in life. So it's kind of a tricky little play on words. I find that philosophy and religion and spirituality and faith all boils down to these words that have one set meaning, but also carry this cultural or generational and or ethnicity and or gender kind of meanings. Okay, so the word bitch, of course, means a female dog, but it also has connotation as being a rotten, horrible female, or in some cases a strong-willed, independent female, and or a whiny person. It just depends on the context and how you are perceiving the word as it's being said to you. So if someone was talking to me in some way, I might perceive the word differently when they say it than they meant it to be. So, in existentialism, words can get you very bogged down, because in trying to describe things that are beyond the sense of what is here and now makes it very hard. We get mucked up in it. But that's basically what existentialism is. And then the other one means that life has no meaning. So you can it's interesting, because there are people who are existentialisms who believe in that I have meaning, but also believe that life has no meaning. So there was no divine plan. There is no divinity that's going to come down. There's no faith. There's no path. There's no destiny. You are basically just rolling free. And my favorite philosopher that I had read about and talked about in school with many people, and when you go to college, you get pieces of this. In high school, they don't do a whole lot of philosophy. Your teachers will have their own philosophy and might pass it on, but it is rare that you have conversations about philosophy. You do have lots of conversations about morals, I think, in high school. It's been my experience, because I led groups for kids, and we talked about, they would come to me and want to talk about these deep philosophy things that they didn't have any other place to go to. They didn't have anybody to talk to. And that leads me into one of my favorite philosophers, and I don't say his name right either, but I will put a little card in between this. I think it's Sartre, Sartre. He is a French philosopher. He died in 1980. He was born in like 1905 or something. And he has a really interesting take on it, and I kind of follow his to a degree. So his thing was that human beings basically are free. And when he talks about free, he's not talking about freedom like we talk about in a political sense. He's talking that we don't really have a connection to this giant path of how we're supposed to go. Okay, we create our own moral codes. Each individual has that ability, and each individual has the ability to be extremely good or extremely bad, based on their own concept. Now, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, this kind of existentialism is probably more your cup of tea, because that means that you are the person who creates your life. I like the French philosopher. His name was Jean-Paul. I like Jean-Paul's concept of the fact that it is fictional stories that we tell ourselves to create this illusion that there is meaning in the world. So people saying to you, you have to be a banker who has a lot of money, gets married, has many children, is a fictional kind of story that is told throughout generations. And I kind of get that, and I'm kind of that way. I do believe that there was another newer philosopher, archaeologist, who made a comment that that we as human beings tell ourselves fictional stories, and I really do believe that's true. I think that we buy into the idea that we have to have money. We buy into the idea that we have to have money to do all these things in our life, when in reality we don't. We don't need money, because people have been doing things all over the place without money. But being able to perceive our life the way we want to is sometimes really hard. The other thing that he always was very into was the idea of abstract, open-mindedness thinking. Not very abstract, but looking at things and not giving them, like I said, words that have a preconceived construction. So the example that they gave in this crash course that you could go look at, because I needed examples because I didn't really know how to explain it. I know it in my head, but I didn't know how to explain it. So one of his things that he talks about is that if you were to describe, take a normal thing that you do every day, and the one they used was having dinner with your mate. Okay, and if you say that to somebody, you have images and thoughts and things that go with it that we put conceived and created conversational titles to. So an example is that he would say that you would say, I'm having dinner with my mate, and it would bring up this image. But it would be an image that is kind of flavored with a more softer, easier thing, not so, I guess, cynical in a way, is how some people might say it. So it would be, you're eating on a, let's say, a wooden table, right? So the wooden table wouldn't be called a wooden table. It would be called a destroyed slabs of wood, and on it would be these would be food of slaughtered animals and ripped apart plants, and you would be eating with a person whose genitals you sometimes touch. So it's this very weird concept of disassociating yourself with the stuff that you're connected to, and giving it a more sometimes negative term, cynical, but also you could do it in the other way and it not be a cynical. I mean, you could just have said that you were eating meat from dead animals. They don't have to be slaughtered, but it could just be meat from dead animals. I mean, they are slaughtered, but you see what I mean? That different words that you use convey different meanings. And so that's what he was trying to show in his aspect. So the question had been to me, going back to the original question for what does the Vixen say, is do I believe in existentialism, nihilism, Nihlism, I think is how you spell it, Nihlism. Sorry, I'm going to mangle that word constantly. I do to a degree. Now, I understand the need to believe that there is a divine purpose to you being on earth. I understand there being a need to have a purpose. Sometimes I have these bouts where I don't have any connection to my what my purpose is on this world. Okay, I think that life itself is a purpose. That's it. That's your purpose, to live. That's it. And to die, to be born and to live and die. And how you choose to do that is up to you. I don't think there's any way in, if I do it differently than you do it, that your way is better than my way. The only reason it would be better is because it's better for you and not better for me. It's just that it's good for you. So John Paul also made that statement, was that when difficult decisions come up, or just any decision you make in your life, whatever decision you make, that's the right decision. Even if the product in the end is wrong, the decision was right because it was your decision. It was nobody else's decision. Nobody else has the right to tell you. Now, people will follow other things, and as far as John Paul was concerned, he believed that you really shouldn't be asking other people what you should be doing, because they are in the same place you are philosophy-wise. All they've learned to do is believe in the fictional stories that they have been following, such as I needed to get married, I needed to be a good wife, I needed to be a mother to children, I needed to make sure that I did my part for my church, for my government, for my school, for my people, whatever. And they're telling you and passing it on to you and expecting you to follow that, but it's not a divine thing. It doesn't exist. There is no meaning to it. You exist. Now, some people get very perplexed as to why people will say the universe was made for them. Well, in most of your spiritual, religious stories or myths, it states that the world was pretty much created for people. Except for, like, I think in the Greeks' religion, the gods created the world for them, and then they got around to creating humans. They thought, I'll create some humans to play with too. So in the Greek religion, even though you might have been closer to your gods in one aspect, you were also really not, they saw you as playthings, which is interesting because most of the philosophy comes from the Greeks. So I guess they were struggling with that idea that, Do the gods control us, or do we control ourselves? But people will point out, well, the universe would exist whether we were here. That in itself is another whole philosophy question that people don't understand. If you believe in science, then yes, the world is going to be there whether you're there or not. If you believe in a divine thing, and that the world around you was created by this divine power, being, whatever, so nothing really existed until that thing, that power, ended up creating the world, then you would say that the world doesn't exist unless you existed. Now, in some cases, it's not an individual you. It's like a group of you, like Christianity or Buddhism, okay? So the world doesn't exist for just one person. It exists for all people, right? But does that mean if you don't exist, then the world doesn't exist? Which, like I said, is a whole nother philosophy question. It runs on that same idea that my favorite one, this is my favorite one. If a tree falls in the forest, is there anyone there to hear it? Does it still make a sound? Does it really crash? Does it exist? Or do we exist and therefore the world exists and sound exists and everything else exists? And there's no way to prove this, you know, because people will say, oh, well, you could put a camera, but the camera is a perception of you. It is a piece of you, so you're still there. There's no way to prove that anything occurs, because once you go to prove that something is happening, you thus go back to the original thing that you had to be there to prove it existed. And again, it's like a weird riddle that rolls around in your head, because the words are kind of paradoxical, okay? So if I'm there to witness the tree make a sound, okay, and the sound doesn't have to be just a hearing sound, it can be a vibration. So I'm there and the tree crashes and I feel a vibration in the ground. I must assume that when I'm not there, the tree still does that. That's the logic. The logic would say that then it will still exist. But if you believe that things can exist without you, like you are creating the world as you move through it in your little bubble, then when you are away from certain areas, they no longer exist. And there was a thing called Down the Rabbit Hole, which was a video about quantum physics and string theory with the idea of multiple dimensions going on at the same time. So while you might be here doing something, all the places that you couldn't physically see with yourself were either not existent or doing something else. And people always say, oh, well, like looking in a mirror, you see behind you. But again, there is a portion of you that you do not see. And philosophy says, in a different type, that area that you can't see, whether by your own eye or with your human things like cameras or mirrors or whatever, does it really exist? We say it exists because we use other sensories and stuff, but not necessarily does it exist. So what does the Vixen say? What does the Vixen say? What does the Vixen say about this all? I like to think about it periodically, and some days, like I said, I kind of stop and I don't feel my connection to the world, but I am mentally ill and I don't feel a connection to a lot of things sometimes. So you, as an individual person, have to find that on yourself. And that's the extension. Again, that's back to that existentialism. It states that you are the only one who understands your reality, and you're the only one who basically creates your reality. You pick your path and your destiny, whether that includes listening to generations of people who have told you what to do, or whether you strike out on your own and do something different. You are the person that can find the meaning in your life. Even if there is no meaning out there, it is still your choice for that. So that's it. That's what I have to say about it. I added to my amount of nonsense and riddling that every other person who's done philosophy has made. There is no clear right or wrong. That's why I like existentialism, because it says that from the very beginning, is that there is no right or wrong. There are no morals but the ones that you create. There is no path but the one that you walk. And no one else can ever walk my walk. I can tell you about it, and we can empathize together. But basically, it is my walk that I walk on my own. I'm pretty much born alone, and I pretty much die alone. And even if I shared the womb with someone, like a twin or whatever, I am still in my own little bubble. All right, that's it. Catch y'all on the flip side. Next vlog will be a topic vlog. I think I'm going to talk about gifts. I like getting them. All right. Peace. I'm out of here.